We are ready to start. I call the meeting to order of the workshop and call meeting for this Monday, September 25th. We will open with a public hearing on ordinance number 1024 to amend the zoning for self-storage facilities. John, you went over this. Do you want to touch base on it again?
Sure. This was recommended by the Planning Commission. A gentleman had come and looked at a property in the commercial district, was zoned for the use of mini warehouses. Our ordinance basically said that it has to be a minimum of 5 acres, and they were just asking if they would be able to put them there. It's 2 acres, and so instead of granting a variance, we decided to change our ordinance to match the surrounding areas. Most everybody across the state has 2 acres as a minimum. In our East Tennessee Development District, Jordan Rockwell is a planner that basically said, yeah, that's pretty much the standard across the state. And so rather than granting a variance to the Board of Zoning Appeals, we decided it needed to be changed in our ordinance. So basically bringing that restriction down from 5 acres to 2 acres. That would have been approved by the board on 2 readings.
Okay. Anybody here to make a comment about this? Josh, do you have a comment to make? All right. Do I hear a motion that we accept this ordinance number 1024 to amend the zoning for self-storage facilities?
Second.
Motion made second. Roll call vote. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Commissioner Hughes. Commissioner Mosier. Commissioner Richardson.
Aye.
Commissioner James. Aye. Commissioner Stutz.
Aye.
All right, motion does carry. Workshop discussion. In the workshop, we have several items for review. First, Chief Fireman and Commissioner Hughes have an update that we talked about on Wright Street changes for a one-way extension. Chief Fireman.
I'll let Commissioner Hughes talk about it too, Mayor. We met with the hospital, and I met with Mr. Stutz and met with the church. Mark got all the church folks together, and everything that we can come up with the drawing that should be in your packet now. Both parties on both sides of Wright Street are in agreement with it. And what it allows basically, and Mark might be able to explain, it allows the church to have back their handicap market that they used to have years ago, and it keeps all the flow going up Wright Street. And there will be no parking, and the hospital actually wanted no parking on their side because they had some issues with people parking there and not being able to get traffic through anyway. It was kind of blocked.
You basically just said we haven't heard anything back from either one of them concerning any negativity on doing this. I'm in full compliance and I think we need to go ahead and do it.
Okay, we'll put that on the agenda for Monday night. We'll vote on it Monday night. We also want to get an update from Commissioner Jeets on the downtown project.
Okay, so I think there might have been some confusion the last time when we had a drawing, so we just want to go back to this drawing. This is pretty much the drawing that we saw last time. It looked a little bit different, and we discussed that it did not have one of the egresses. The egress is kind of in the middle across, thank you, Jessica. That egress was missing from the original drawing, and we talked about the fact that we needed to have that egress in there. That egress is in there, but there does seem to be some confusion that people thought maybe one of the egresses was on either side of the gazebo, but the sidewalk does go all the way down to the fountain circle, and so we just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that the sidewalk does go all the way down. It would completely close off traffic from 11 turning into Walnut or around the gazebo. After that, we hope to connect the sidewalks from the Circle Park to the gazebo, to the new stairs that will be in the front of the gazebo instead of the back of the gazebo, and continue to work on our green space. At this point, you can get into this parking lot from Monroe Street, kind of at the light, which is usually a disaster, or you can come into it from Railroad Road across the railroad tracks. or you can come into it off of 11 into that egress there. We do know from being down there and working that around the time that school gets out, getting out of this parking lot, if you use any road other than across the railroad tracks, is extremely hard, especially if you're trying to turn left. And so we do know that that could be somewhat of a problem, and we might want to keep railroad crossing open instead of actually closing that out. But that is the original picture for the most part, and the sidewalk does go all the way down to the Circle Park.
Would they turn on there, turn and then go down, and make a right turn and then go across the railroad track?
So if you came into the parking lot from Monroe Street or even 11, yes, you would turn.
I'm talking about this egress right here. How do would they turn in the parking lot, existing parking lot, go down at the gazebo and take a right, and then they could go over the railroad track? Is that what
Yeah. Currently, right now, well, it's blocked off right now because the guys are working
And they can come in
there.
the same way?
They can. They can come in or out that way over the railroad tracks right now.
I was under the impression it's gonna be one way across the railroad.
Well, we can. It just hasn't been exactly approved, yes or no, if we're gonna close the railroad tracks, if we're gonna keep it a one-way, or if we're gonna keep it open altogether. Any of those options are valid.
I personally don't think you can close railroad tracks. I thought a lot about this. I was down there and looked the other day, and this is just my personal opinion of me thinking. Coming out on the Main Street right there, in the middle of that parking lot, turning left is gonna be, it's gonna get some air.
It's very hard.
It's gonna be difficult. What I had thought is, that needs to be right turn only. Coming
Okay,
out
that
top
egress
of
be a
here.
right turn only, yep.
That's right turn only. And then you get signage out there, you make the railroad tracks one way only
Yep.
from the parking lot.
Leaving, going right.
Right there.
Yes.
Put signage out to southbound Main Street, point people back to the traffic light.
Yes. We think that, David and I kind of feel that that is the best option right now, is to make that a one-way coming out over across the railroad tracks. We hadn't thought about making it a right turn only out of that egress, but that is a really good thought, because it backs up traffic at the light, and it's just extremely hard to do. And they're kind of turning into our crosswalk, which we don't really want that to happen either. And so, yeah, if we could make it a
south
one-way.
and north movement in the parking lot, all
Yes.
south and north.
Well, aren't you, how many parking places are we gonna take away from, I see where you're gonna remove parking spaces?
For the green space, yeah, if you put the green space by the gazebo, you lose, I think there's like
No,
4.
I'm talking about over here, to the left. On there, yeah.
Yes, I think we're losing 11 altogether. I think there's 7 and 4. And because of that sidewalk, we do want nobody to park there. That will not be restriped once 11 is redone. So they will be using the parking lot a lot more than before, and then again, everything will change a little bit once the community center gets at the sub area and that kind of stuff. So
I understand green space and all that, but with the limited parking we have downtown already, is losing parking spaces something we entertain.
we don't have to do the green space. That is the grant. That is not something that we're moving on right now. We don't even know for sure if we have that grant. What we would probably like to do though is to connect the sidewalk from the circle fountain to the gazebo steps. And so you would probably lose a few parking spots there, but you would be able to retain a couple of them as well.
I think the bigger concern was up on the left Main Street. That's a lot of parking.
There's a lot of parking.
Downtown.
So the downtown mobilization grant has always said that we needed to get rid of that side parking for safety concerns. And so when we did this drawing and this design, it was always with the intention of losing that side of the road parking. for safety reasons. And we are still
Yes.
on the same page with that.
If you're looking at the 6 right here, where the parking lot's at, where right there's 3, and then right here's 3. When the sidewalk was reconstructed, we could go down and measure, but the sidewalk come over further. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dave. The
Yes.
sidewalk come over further, so now if you park a car there and you open, you're gonna get out into traffic. So I think for a safety precaution right there, by putting the sidewalk 2 foot wider, it pushed the car out 2 foot further into the roadway.
Yeah, and that was always the design and the plan, was to lose that.
To lose the parking.
To lose the
on the road,
parking.
yes.
And I think some of the discussion around that involved those pavers that were there, that were uneven, or trip hazards, some of the things that were, feedback we were getting, to remove those and pour it a sidewalk to make it ADA compliant, because what you gotta do if you build a new sidewalk, it has to be a certain width, 5 feet wide. So if we did that, widened that out, it got it out into those parking spaces. So we had to sacrifice parking for ADA compliance and mobility, pedestrian safety and those sorts of things. That was the trade-off that we talked about in our meetings.
Yes.
The sidewalk being moved the
Huh?
other. Could the sidewalk have been extended the other direction?
Potentially, it could have come down into that, but, the slope of the property and, then you get into building it up, building up a knee wall or
We probably have to have a retaining wall.
retaining wall. So not that it couldn't have, but again, the recommendations that we got were to basically get rid of the on-street parking for mobility's sake, for pedestrians, because of the sight visibility, sight distance and things like that, that on-street parking, when you're trying to pull out or when you're trying to, like say you're trying to exit the parking lot there, if you're having to look at parked cars and look around them, they recommended doing away with that parking.
The grant, the downtown mobilization grant, actually recommends to get rid of all of the side street parking on both sides. So we don't, at this point, plan on doing that. We're just doing it on the one side. And again, it is to help kind of push people to use the crosswalks, because that's what one of the things is, that it's really dangerous in this area because people get out of those side street parking areas, they open up their door, and then they just simply walk straight across the street without going to one of the crosswalks. And so it's dangerous with people driving down there. So again, that is one of the goals of the downtown mobilization grant, was to improve our safety, which meant we had to get rid of that parking.
The thing about it is, when the new bar and grill opens up, there's gonna be a lot of traffic down there that we don't have right now.
Right, and we do know that parking has always been an issue, and yes, of course, this does go a little bit backwards when we need to go forwards with parking, but we also have to make sure that people are safe. I know from talking to
Well,
Eddie and
has
stuff,
anybody got killed there yet, or?
we've had a few people hit by cars, so we definitely want to reduce that.
I wonder if we could buy Debbie Exum's a lot.
Wouldn't that be nice?
You go talk to her, Mayor.
And
Dave and I went down there this morning, and we walked over this stuff, and I think the idea of what they're trying to do is acceptable. I think it's a lot of thought and ideas going into it. The only problem I got is making that one way and blocking off the 68 entrance and the exit up here. I think that's gonna be a mistake, because you got to have traffic going both directions. And going back to the railroad, if you make the railroad a one-way going out and block it off on the incoming route with a permanent structure where people can't drive a car in there, then I think that's gonna be good, because that's gonna leave you another way to get out of the parking lot. Rather than getting backed up, you say, well, I can go over here and go out and go straight, and you go up this way. So I think it worked. As far as the parking lots, we just had to see what's going on.
Can I ask what provision are you making for either a fence or a railing along that sidewalk?
So because of the height of coming up to the sidewalk is not to the level that you actually have to have a hand railing or a retaining wall. And so that's one of the reasons why we did the landscaping the way that we did, so that it would bring it up, and then we're gonna have a line of bushes across it, so it looks a little more level even there.
Dave, what
You
happened?
might
You
want
had
to
to have
talk with your attorney or your insurance carrier about that. I don't know if it's falling off and rolling into a bush, or, you know, under a car, it's gonna be
I didn't hear you.
very good.
What height do you have to have from the ground up before you have to have a handrail?
What is it, like 30 inches,
30
John?
inches.
If you're doing handrails, and I think even for that, for a retaining wall, it may even be a little bit higher. I did look into it. when they
Yeah, I
were
think a
talking about it.
retaining wall was 36 inches and a handrail was 30, and we're not meeting
So-
either one of those.
What height we at?
I think we're at 24, if I remember right.
Well, I mean, right now, we're at like 6 because the landscaping slopes to the sidewalk. It's 6 inches. You know, we've got a slope bank from the sidewalk to the
Yeah.
parking lot, and it's gonna come up a little bit more once we put our curb in, so it's not gonna be as
Is
sloped.
that filled-in area in account with the height from the ground up, you got to have a handrail? Was that excluded out?
That's excluded out because we built it up on a slope to the sidewalk, so it wasn't a straight drop off, you know.
So if they fall down, they just roll.
We can roll under a car.
Roll under a front end of a car.
And I think too, some of the discussion was, even if it's not required, it might be a good idea to think about adding that just for safety's sake, or like you said, Mr. Stubbs, you know, if somebody were to fall. and
Well, I mean, if you just go down and look at it, you know, whether it's old people like me in a wheelchair eventually, or some young baby, or whoever, you know, I mean, before you just say have at it, I'd get the insurance carrier down here, but I don't think they will tell you you can have that big of a drop and nothing to prevent people from falling off. If nothing else, they're walking along horseplay and knock each other out, but, you know.
Or you so far along enough you couldn't go back and put?
No, we could add a handrail if we had to.
Yeah.
That was the plan the whole time, that if we had to have a handrail, we would add it, but, you know, if we didn't need it, then we were gonna leave it off.
Well, I'm with Jim Stubbs, I think insurance company's gonna laugh at you. With that
Well, I mean,
handrail up there.
if we're gonna do that, we don't really need the hedgerow at the top, we can make it all a green space.
So what is the plan for the green space on the other side where the parking spaces are gonna be taken out?
Are you talking about right here?
No, over here on these things, yeah, right there.
We're just landscaping it, and at this point, we're gonna do some sort of mixture of sod and mulch.
So do you think that'll be kind of a deterrent for people across the street too, hopefully?
We're hoping, the whole plan, even with the landscaping, is to help push people to the crosswalks. And so we do, whether it's a row of bushes or hand railings that you can't get over, either one of them works to deter people from going straight across the sidewalk into the road versus going to the crosswalks.
In the green space that's here along where these ball mounts are, you know, we don't have to comply with our own landscaping ordinance, but the landscaping ordinance does say that we need to have areas of green. The bigger reason is water runoff, because you get water standing on Highway 11 in the street. If you don't have any green area through there, if you don't have mulch that will absorb it and let it dry down, that water is going to wash off down into that parking lot. So that landscape barrier serves a function.
What is that? I don't know about that. You're right here. This one. What is that?
What do you think?
Yellow.
Yellow striping. So that's the plan for striping the road, so that now, obviously, traffic is blocked off right here now. You can't turn off Highway 11 into the parking lot in this area. So they're saying you would want to restripe this right here so that it's not a turn lane anymore to go in to the road. The main thing for tonight is, this is formed right here. The sidewalk's been constructed from here all the way to the gazebo. There's form set up for this. There's been a drain installed right here. We need to make sure everyone's still on board with this sidewalk going all the way to the front of the train car, because they're coming to pour concrete tomorrow. So you can't tell us tomorrow that you don't want that sidewalk there, because it's getting poured tomorrow. So that was our main concern, was there seemed to be some misunderstanding. I think a lot of people thought the sidewalk was just replacing the existing sidewalk. They didn't realize it was going all the way in front of where the gazebo is. So we wanted to make sure everybody was on the same page about that before they actually poured tomorrow.
If I remember right, the picture we had when it came up for vote before, that's as far as it went. White line, 11 down to the front of the gazebo. That's all it showed, because it also showed that Highway 11 entrance blocked off. So that I know we discussed.
This picture that I
You know,
got
I just
right
don't
now.
know.
What are you worried about?
Well, I'm not gonna tell those Main Street merchants that they have 11 missed parking spaces. Whoever wants to do that.
We have talked about that in the Main Street meeting.
No.
Because this was presented, well, first of all, we had a steering committee for the entire downtown master plan. So that involved the president of the Main Street board, the Main Street director, me, John, Haley, several Main Street business owners. So they were on the steering committee to begin with when we talked about on-street parking. I will say the reaction from the Main Street group was definitely that they didn't want any on-street parking removed from the store side of Highway 11. They were very adamant about that. They also had pretty strong feelings that they didn't really care about a bike lane. Like that was something that kept coming up as a recommendation, and they were like, we would rather have parking than a bike lane. We care more about the parking than parking. But we did discuss with multiple ones of them that this would eliminate, but that was actually a safety recommendation more than it was a aesthetic.
Design, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't really a design recommendation. They said that you could not see the pedestrians at these two crosswalks with the on-street parking. If all those spaces were filled up, that it was very hard to see pedestrians, which the bulb outs would help with that, because it's gonna put them a little further out into the road. But that was definitely framed as a safety recommendation.
There's no way you can park with this green space here, there's still no way to have parking here.
You can, but when, like Eddie said, when you open your door, it's gonna open into traffic now. Once we put an ADA compliant 5-foot wide sidewalk right there, it pushes the cars out into the traffic.
And again, guys, that's something, I don't know how Kenny goes, but that's something we can look at, we can get data to measure. That's with me looking at it, looking at a car parked down there. 2 foot makes a difference when you get it out near the roadway. Ms. Jinx had talked to me about put 3 and 3.
So just removing this
yes,
one?
removing the ones on the ends before the bulb outs. I told her I thought it'd be safer, taking into the fact that that puts them so much closer to the roadway, we took them all. So I know at one time that she was understanding, and you correct me if I'm wrong, you were understanding on 3 and 3. But I feel for a safety thing, and we definitely need to measure that, guys, to make sure that we're not out in the road. Because I don't know, I don't know how much is the roadway. I know they're coming in 2 weeks to pave,
And we do have time on this part
yes,
of
this
it,
is something we've got time to measure
because
tomorrow.
TDOT is not gonna strike back those parking spots anyway. The city is who has always had to strike those parking spots. Those are not TDOT official parking spots. Those are City of Sweetwater striped parking spots. So if we decide 2 months from now that we wanna add those parking stripes back in, we can do that. But I do think it's important we have this discussion so everybody's on the same page. Especially this green space area here, it doesn't have to happen. If it's better for us to have two-way traffic still going over the railroad crossing, there's still room for that. We don't have to close that crossing, and we can still have two-way traffic right through here. We could still even just put green space right around the gazebo area, just to have a little bit more, I don't know, make it feel like it's more like in a park than sitting in the middle of the street. But the main thing for tonight is, if you all are wanting to throw the stock wheels on finishing this sidewalk through here, we gotta know that tonight, because they're pouring concrete tomorrow. So if this is a problem, we gotta talk about it. The parking, the railroad closing, that is all stuff that can kind of be talked about every month if we want to, until we come up with an
The
answer.
sidewalk's the only thing that's blocking any traffic. The other parking won't be blocked. That's what everybody needs to understand.
If you go allow two-way traffic right here, you're gonna have a problem with it, which coming down. That's the thing to do, have one-way traffic. When you cross the street up there, there's gonna be one-way traffic all the way anyway.
Are you talking about on 11, that egress right there? You want that to be a right-hand turn only, is that what you're saying?
I'm talking about down on the railroad track.
Railroad tracks, you want the railroad track to be a
One way
one-way
should be a
exit
one-way.
only?
Yeah.
The
you
one
have
thing to think
different
about,
ways you
if
gonna
that's
do
one
it.
way though, is how do you enforce that? I know we can put a sign here that says one way only, and we can put a sign here that says one way only. But I think people are still gonna drive two ways into that parking lot unless, I mean, I really don't know how to not make it. I mean, it'd be hard to enforce that.
I think we need to worry about sidewalk tonight and do some more studying on the rest of it. This right here is what I don't want to be blocked out, going back towards 68. Where you got 68 coming out right here, or coming and going now, we'll block that off and everything's gotta go that way.
That's not gonna be blocked off, is it?
No, that's going
At the light, it will always be open on
The entrance on
Monroe
Monroe
Street
Street.
into the
Yeah.
parking lot.
It's not right there.
That's not
Well, I
blocked.
misunderstood what y'all talking about.
Mm-mm.
You talking about going one way?
Yeah.
On the other egress.
Once you get in,
Yeah.
I thought was if you go south to north and make the whole parking lot a one way,
Yeah.
come in and then exit here, or right turn only at the Main Street.
As long as that's not been blocked off, I don't have a problem.
Yeah,
No, that's definitely saying open.
Okay,
And we're gonna do a one-way on the other side going across the road.
do you want to, you want after the meeting, are we still gonna go down there and look it over, or?
If you guys want to, we would be open to having a field trip down there so you can walk it and look at it and stuff and stuff.
Okay, then we can bring it back up Monday night, but concrete will be poured tomorrow,
Yeah.
right?
So the green space here and around the gazebo, how many parking spaces would be available there?
I think technically there's only 4 that are striped, but like more than 4 cars parked there, like people parked.
Two of
Along
us
the
handicapped,
whole
no,
road.
two's handicapped.
Two
And
handicapped,
we
and
can
this
save
lot
at
back
least
here
two
is
of
on
those,
fire.
that's the plan we've got.
Yeah. So we wouldn't take all of the.
Still have a greenway.
And still have green space, yes. If we go down there, we can explain it better if we're standing there.
Okay, we'll go down there and take a look at it. I guess we can make the decision down there if we're pour concrete tomorrow night. Only thing that bothers me, I'm kinda like Jim on this, we've worked so long to get traffic in downtown. Simon's gonna open up that place. Businesses moving down there, restaurants, and then to take 11 parking places, that's a hit. And some people will drive somewhere else. I've had people tell me they won't shop in Madisonville on account of parking. They come to Sweetwater. You know,
It's pretty horrible there.
especially with courts and station.
And that may be something there, David may take a tape to that down there and check with the state, we got later. You know, like I said, Miss Joanne, she said that she would like to have 3, when we talked about it, and we realized that the space was too small. We thought when we lost 2 foot for the sidewalk.
But it's
How
still,
far did you come
We
over,
can check
David?
that before the next meeting if we.
That's.
How far did you come over this way on this board than you was originally?
2
From
feet.
the original, 2 feet?
2 feet.
But what I'm hearing is, I don't, well, and we'll decide when we get down there, but the parking is more of a concern than where the sidewalk extends to.
I've never had a problem with the sidewalk.
yeah, the sidewalk, extending the sidewalk from the gazebo to the railroad tracks has nothing to do with parking. Like there's nothing about parking in that area. So that's,
Well, they still have plenty of room over there in front of the ice cream place and all that. They park on the far side of the road over there, you know. Plus in front of the store too, they still have that sidewalk.
we're not
off.
taking any of that parking.
He just stops there
Yes. Mhm.
going into the train car.
Well, it won't go all the way down to
Actually,
the
goes
train,
right
but
here.
just to the entrance of the fountain park.
It's right where the
So
front.
that's where it will.
So that won't interfere with any parking.
No, we're not even on that side.
Okay.
And again, just remember the removal of the parking on the side of the road really is a safety issue. We all know how much more traffic is coming through Sweetwater. We know how much more busy their streets are, especially when school lets out at 3 o'clock. But it's more of a safety issue than anything else.
Yeah, we'll go from there.
For sure, this one, you cannot see the person getting ready to cross the road at this crosswalk. You for sure have to get rid of that.
If you do three, that'll let you get rid of one on each end.
We'll go down and look at it, we can talk about it. And I guess we can make a decision down there whether to go ahead and have a concrete pour tomorrow or not.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. All right, on the agenda for October, we have minutes and distributions, a public hearing for the signage ordinance and the budget amendment. We also have second and final reading on those ordinances. The draft in your packet includes estimate funding to add one parking employee from now until January when Toby retires, as he is using his leave. We also have 2 bids on vehicles and a few hiring approvals. That's all coming up Monday night. Also, John Cleveland has drafted ordinance 1027. What is 1027, John?
Number after 1026.
Oh, no, sorry, hang on, I'll tell you what it is. That's the Richland Farms and Other Streets ordinance.
Oh, okay. I don't put numbers on these when I give them to Jessica, she fills the numbers in like after that. The back half of Richland Farms streets were approved by commission on a motion. Charter says that if it has to do with real property, which streets are, it has to be by charter. Huh? Ordinance. By ordinance. So what this does is just does that same thing that y'all already approved. Only it does it by ordinance. And in addition, it appears to have been an uneven practice because the streets have been approved by ordinance haphazardly through the history of the town. Sometimes by motion, sometimes by resolution, sometimes by, so this also says that everything that's ever been approved is approved in this ordinance. And it's just so that it's by ordinance. It's not approving anything that y'all haven't already approved.
Just puts it all in one package.
Doing it all at one time. Otherwise, we have to go back through decades and review how all the streets, which is something that we're talking about doing just as an administrative matter, is preparing a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet that lists every street. Because right now, we don't have a single list that does that.
Okay. We don't have that
So
on
this,
this.
what this does is approves those streets.
Any questions? We'll put that on the agenda. Anything else come for the board?
You hear anything, TMI? But it's still on.
Bobby Lee, who the county hired as a tax attorney, represented him in his 2 lawsuits, 2 appeals on from the Equalization Commission to the Knox County Chancery Court. And Reed Dixon and I went to the Chancery Court, 2 different parts of the Chancery Court this morning. And part 1 is where Swan Freed had filed to claim that her use of that property was exempt. And they've basically done nothing with that lawsuit, that appeal, the whole time. And so the chancellor signed the order I presented to him this morning that dismissed that with prejudice. And their 30 days to appeal that will start tomorrow or the next day. Nobody was there representing her. And she cannot represent the trust herself because she's not a lawyer. We talk about it too much like it's swan free. And it's not her personally. It's not her business. In part 2, there was a memorandum of opinion or decision from the chancellor over a year ago, in which he upheld the valuation that the equalization commission gave to the property. And nobody really understands, including the chancellor right now, why at the end of that he said that still left to be determined was the issue of the amount of the tax and attorney's fees and court costs and those things, which really weren't before the court. All that was there was whether or not to affirm the equalization commission's valuation of the property. And his adding those things at the end are part of what has slowed all this thing down, because that gave Swan Free and her attorneys the opportunity to say that they wanted to negotiate some of this stuff. Really, there was nothing to negotiate. All that said was statute. The order that I presented this morning took care of all of that. The chancellor law clerk had found a case that an appellate opinion that said that you can't mix that appeal from the equalization board with anything else. You can't bring these other issues in. The chancellor was afraid that if we did all of that, it would open the door for an appeal to say that it has to come back. So the chancellor, we orally waived all of those other issues so that the chancellor can do an order that just simply affirms the equalization board's valuation. So it'll be clean. And because he decided to do that this morning while we were in court, he's drawing his own order. So that will be the end of this week, maybe sometime next week before it actually gets signed. But that's just a few days. The 30 days for them to appeal that will start running then. And as soon as that appeal time expires, nobody was there to represent the trust on either of those. We think she's run out of free lawyers to snook her in to represent the trust. So once that's done, we'll be ready to start tax procedure, which will take about 6 months. There's just so many kinds of notice that have to be published in the paper and service process and such. It takes that long. And that's if everything goes right the first time, which we all know rarely happens. So late spring, we'll probably be having the sale along with all of the other taxes.
Good. Thank you.
And that's what happened today.
Okay, thank you, John. Department head, John, what's going on with the fire department?
Went ahead, got a little crew, things running good.
Eddie?
Staying busy, like I said, school's going, getting ready for Halloween, it's coming up to be long, fire department will be doing a lot of Halloween safety programs, stuff like that. Like I said, people will smooth
Somebody asked me, John, are you gonna be, do you still have fire alarms that you're already giving out? You do? Okay.
All I gotta do is call us.
John?
My guys are working hard. The dry weather has helped us catch up. We've been able to start chipping away at some other little projects we need to get done, so it's looking bright.
All right. David, I need to ask you what you've been doing.
You know what we're doing, trying to button up some of these projects. Move on to the next one.
Y'all do a good job. Y'all got a good crew.
We got a real good crew. I'm telling.
Josh, what's going on with you?
We got a lot of things going on. Woodstock is this Thursday, so if y'all have dogs, make sure you bring them down 5 to 8. We got over 30 vendors for dogs, and we're gonna have a real good time. We're gonna be taking pictures of all the dogs and having a Sweetwater Dog of the Year contest, and the winner gets to be in the parade. So we're excited about that. Then we have Ladies Night Out, October 19th, and then we're doing our big fundraiser for Main Street, crazy little thing called Love, which is a musical, which each one of you will get 2 free tickets to, and you'll get those in the next month, so you can pick which one you want to come to, but we're excited about that also, so. Then we'll hit Christmas and Halloween.
Thank you. John?
Staying pretty busy. Permitting had slowed down somewhat for new builds on residential houses, just because we didn't have a whole lot of availability, but just spoke to the surveyor today on the next phase of Willow Creek. So he's almost got that plat ready to submit and turn in for those lots that are being created for those new builds. So hopefully, knock on wood, should have some new construction homes coming down the pike pretty soon in Willow Creek. They're just about done on the townhome. They're building out a final townhome right there on Asbury Circle in Willow Creek. That should be done pretty quickly. It's only 3 units, one townhome with 3 units. Whereas the others are single residential, single family homes. There'll be about a dozen in that next phase. He's gonna phase it out, do about 12 at a time. So, knock on wood, we should have some new houses going up within the next, 6 to 12 months.
You heard anything from Kentucky, Brian?
No, last communication I had with them was they had recommitted to the project and would be moving forward by the end of the year. So, I don't know what that means, if they're gonna move dirt by the end of the year, or if they're gonna commit funds to it, but everything's been approved. Their site plan's been approved, their construction plans for the building itself have been approved. The ball's in their court. It's basically them just calling and saying, we'd like to get a building permit. So, I think.
They spent a pretty good bit moving that gas line.
Yeah, they're already in it pretty deep.
They've got $1 or something.
I can't imagine them backing out at this point. I think it's just a matter of timing. When I spoke to him, he said the cost of everything, supplies, but then also the availability of their contractors and things like that. I think ours was a little lower on the priority list for them than some of their other projects, but they said they committed to kind of moving it back up the list. So hopefully by the end of the year, they'll be moving some dirt. But, I don't count my chickens before they hatch.
Okay, thank you, John. Anything else? All minds clear? Joey, you got anything else you want to add to this?
I think I'm done.
Okay, we're adjourned. Everybody at will that wants to go down, we're going to go down, check out the